What's up, my friends? Welcome to the Kristof Lewis podcast, Create Your Career. This is Contemplation with Kristof, number 125, episode number 293. So first contemplation in 3.5 months. The first episode in 3.5 months came out last week. So if you haven't been here before, this is the Kristof Lewis podcast. As I just said, it's been a long and hard 3.5 months, but I'm still here, and there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about. Clearly, we'll not talk about it all during this episode, and it will be shared during all of the conversations and the contemplations. So if you're new here, we have had some new listeners and some new viewers. I'll start off by saying we're both on audio and on video. These contemplations, I think, are going to be on video now, trying it out. So we'll see how that goes. So head over to YouTube and subscribe, and also to Apple Podcasts and subscribe. There are going to be 2 conversations per month and 2 contemplations per month. What are those? The conversations are where I interview someone that's usually a military person, ex-military, current, active, or a first responder. And what I want to do is interview those people. They are people that inspire me. So I ask them questions about how they got to what they're doing now, if it's active duty. Even how did they become that? Why did they do that? Why are they doing the things they did? I like focusing on career transitions, how they got out of the military, and inspiring you that you can do what you want to do, because I was told so many times that I wouldn't be able to successfully transfer out of the military with the credentials that I had at the time. So that's the gist of it. I would encourage you to check out the conversations that are already out there. Like I said, we have probably 168 guests already that are out there. Then the contemplations, which are this one, it's just me, and I talk about topics that come up over on Instagram, where you can find me at Kristof Lewis, or during the conversations, and I deep dive into them just a little bit more, share about myself a little bit more, and into those topics. So that's it. This is the new office. This is one of the first recordings in the new office, still playing around with it. Carter is asleep on the couch. If you're on YouTube, you can see her. She has awoken to her name, but she's loving it. We got company. I'm excited to be here. Again, as a gentle reminder, you can find this podcast on audio, on Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube. Head over there and subscribe. This week's conversation, or I should say, I'm used to saying this week's conversation, but last week's conversation was 168 with Mr. Bobby Kipper. Bobby is a former law enforcement officer, best-selling author. He's around the area where I am currently at, in the Hampton Roads area here on the East Coast of Virginia. And he is doing a lot of good things with gang violence. He is retired now, but all of what he does revolves around making the area where he has lived in his entire life a better place. So I encourage you to check that out. Today, I'm going to talk to you about hiatus and hardships. So let's get into it. All right, my friends, as I said, this is the contemplations. This is where I just dive into things that are either top of mind, that come out in the conversations with the guests, or I encourage you to contact me on Instagram, shoot me a direct message, and talk about some of the things that you maybe hear me share on Instagram or during the conversations during the week. And a lot of times I create contemplation episodes, these episodes, out of just conversations with you. I've always said it, if you haven't listened to this podcast before, that these podcasts, I kind of like them to be more of a two-way podcast, where this is obviously one way right now, and I'm just talking to a camera, and it's always weird, and people don't realize that until I call it out right now, but I digress. What I want to do, though, is you hear me now, yes, but I encourage you to reach out to me either on the Instagram or on the website, kristoflewis.com, or on YouTube. And if you disagree with something, that's awesome. If you agree with something, that's awesome. We need to understand that we can do both and still have a civil conversation now more than ever, as I record this in November of 2020. So reach out to me, and I'd love to have that topic come out in another conversation. And hell, even we can go on live on Instagram or Facebook or something and talk about it there and have other people listening too. But today, hiatus and hardships. I had a hiatus of 3.5 months for a lot of reasons. It was something I want to talk about real quick here in this returning contemplation. And the hiatus was because of the hardships, and it's still ongoing, and I wasn't ready to get back into it. But one of the things I always want to talk about and encourage is it's create your career conversations with inspirational people, but I want you to not sell yourself short. And I don't care how cheesy that may sound sometimes, but I always sell myself short, even now, even though I'm so hyper aware of not wanting to do it. So I wasn't ready, and here I am. But I had some medical things that I was working through where I just literally did not feel like myself, and I was struggling day to day to even do my job, and I had to like cut things out of my life and figure out how I was gonna just make it. And I know a lot of people are just in that place where they just want to go, or they're feeling, I'm just trying to survive. Like, and it sounds maybe crazy sometimes, like, I'm here in America, like, how are you, you have all these things, how are you just trying to survive? You have this studio, you work from home, and yes, you're right. But I was struggling internally and physically as a result. So my physical struggle was really wearing me down mentally, and I wasn't feeling like myself. I was trying to explain it with people. I was diagnosed with something. I'm not going to dive into it here, and it was just killing me. And I didn't want to go on medication because I thought I was weak to go on medication. But the short story is, I feel so much better because of this, and the disease is just gone down, and I feel so much better, and I feel like myself. I had a bad investment financially, and work was a lot harder, and I really wanted to just break out of like a mental plateau. Like, you can physically plateau at the gym, for example, and I felt like I wanted to grow more, and I didn't know how to do it, and it was a struggle. So mental plateau, dealing with a recent diagnosis of a disease that my body was combating, which I'm doing great. And I had a bad investment, a very risky investment that went south on me. I learned from all of these things, and work got hard. Work got very hard. But what I wanted to do is I always wanted to learn from these things. And again, I don't care how cheesy or cliche things are, but what I kept on reminding myself is just do the best you can, because that's all you can do. And learn from these things, like the investment. Why did you do this? How can you not do it in the future like this? And why is work hard? How are you going to get through it? Well, I could dive into each one of these little things, and I may in some contemplations in the future, because just how I succeeded at work in my version of success is a whole topic by itself. How I overcame the physical adversity and the mindset as a result, how I came over the financial obstacle as a topic in and of itself. What I pulled out of all of that is that I recognized that I had these hardships, and they all didn't happen at once, and it was difficult to recognize, but I understood that I had to cut the podcast back and a bunch of other things in my life, and I understood that that was okay. I identified what my priorities were in life. I identified that my family was a priority, and I identified that my job was a priority, because my job maintains the lifestyle that my family lives, and it puts food on the table, and it does all of those things. So I had my job and I had my family, and those were my two priorities, and everything else I just had to fill in the puzzle pieces where they fit. And that included the podcast, that included the memorial event I did in August, that included literally friends, everything else in my life. And that's all I could do. I was just trying to keep my head above water. So it's okay to take a break in life, but be hyper aware of why that is and what needs to be a priority, and understand that you will get through that. And hey, it's been 3.5 months. Maybe it's just a day for you, or a week, maybe it's longer, but it's okay to take a break. I asked for lots of help from friends, from family. I had a lot of good conversations. I had a lot of good conversations internally, and here I am. I'm back. So I know there's probably a lot of questions. Maybe there's not, but if there is, on some of the things like how and why was I stressed at work, how I overcame that, how and why was I stressed in general with a medical recent diagnosis and going through all that stuff. How was I stressed, with my family and trying to take care of this? How was I stressed financially? What did I learn from a financial loss like that? And how am I applying it moving forward? So these are all huge topics that I want to apply. But the gist of this was just kind of saying, hey, I'm so stoked to be back. I love podcasting. And I really like sharing my struggles and my failures with you because I learn from sharing them, and hopefully you can understand too that maybe somebody looks at me just because I put my stuff on social media, my life on social media, and they look at me and they go, oh, that guy has the shit together. Maybe not. Maybe that guy's an idiot. I don't know. I don't necessarily care. But what I do care about is I do not always have my shit together. I'm like a good blue chip stock. Like I don't always go up. I don't always go down. But in the long-term investment, I would always bet on me, and I would encourage you to always bet on you. I'm going to have my red days. I'm going to have my green days, but ultimately I am going north because I refuse to give up, and I want you to refuse to give up, and I want you to understand that you can endure failure, and you will absolutely endure failure. And that's the word there. You'll endure it. You will see it. You will endure it. You will get through it. And it will continue to happen, and that's part of it. But learn from it, grow. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to take a break, and just keep on trucking. Never sell yourself short, and create your own path. That's why this is to create your career. So, again, thank you so much for being here. Remember, you can find this podcast on Apple Podcast, on YouTube. Subscribe on either. Tell your friends about this. That's an awesome way to help. I'm very ecstatic to be back and for you to be here. Check out all the other episodes. There's, what did I say, 295 episodes now. And leave a rating if you'd like, 5 stars, and tell me what you like. And I used to always wrap up the podcasts, or at least the contemplations, by saying, you can listen to all the best advice, read all the best books, listen to all the best podcasts, but if you don't apply it, it doesn't mean anything. And I'm working on this theory that I shared with a friend recently, but it essentially boils down to that is the absolute truth. We can have all these conversations. I can hear your inputs, you can hear mine. But if you don't apply it, it doesn't mean anything. Actions are very important, but what's even more important than that are the results. So continue to take action, and you will inevitably and eventually gain the results that you want amidst all the failure and the hardships and the things that just is life. So you got this. Don't sell yourself short. Create your own career, and I will see you next week. Have the best day ever. See ya.